Okay, so one of my favourite film directors, in fact, no, stop. My favourite film director is John Carpenter, without a question, going back a long time. Some of my favourite films have been done by this guy, so I was interested, not really excited or bothered, but interested to hear that he was having some involvement, not as a director, but some kind of producer credit, I don't know, for the upcoming Halloween reboot, remake, whatever it's going to be. And to be honest, I'm kind of, confused as to how it's going to work, but let's talk about that. But first off, we had in the last few days it announced that Jamie Lee Curtis is coming back for this film. Now, up till now, this was said to be a reboot and a remake. Well, not anymore, because she's reprising her role. She's not just having a cameo as some other character, she's playing Laurie Strode in this. And she actually tweeted out officially as well that she's coming back with a caption saying same porch, same clothes, same issues 4 years later kind of thing. So, looks interesting, but very, very confusing, because this franchise has already killed her off. So, now this is not in any way slight against John Carpenter. The work that he did with the first film as director was game-changing for the horror franchise in a lot of ways. And some of the sequels that have come out since haven't been that bad, but then some of them, on the other hand, have been god-awful. Now, as you can see here, we've got the first few films, and the way that the franchise is kind of structured. The original film is what it is, it's great. They did a sequel, obviously, Halloween 2, which wasn't directed by John Carpenter, but it was done kind of it was written by him anyway, I know that, but it was done as a direct follow-on with Jamie Lee Curtis, and they expanded the role a little bit in terms of the character background. They dropped the bombshell that Michael Myers is actually her brother in this. And the third film, interestingly enough, was nothing to do with the Halloween franchise. In terms of Michael Myers, it was a fresh new story. That one's kind of the odd one out, but by the fourth film kind of rebooted the franchise in a lot of ways and brought this new trilogy in where you had Michael Myers' daughter, I suppose. It's kind of weird how it works, but that was Halloween 4, 5 and 6. It's kind of its own little trilogy. And then they left it for a couple of years. I think the fifth one came out in like the mid-90s. And then they did Halloween H2O in 1998, I think it was, for the 20th anniversary. And they brought Jamie Lee Curtis back for that, which was interesting. It wasn't a good film, but I can see what they were trying to do, so a bit of respect for them for that. It was very cliche. But then they did another film after that with Jamie Lee Curtis, which was called Halloween Resurrection. And I am not kidding, it is probably one of the worst films I have ever seen. It is god-awful. I don't recommend watching it unless you're drunk. But, yeah, it's got Busta Rhymes in it, and, it needs to stick to the music, really, because, this was my reaction when I saw that film for the first time earlier this year.
Trick or treat.
No! Halloween Resurrection was god-awful. It came out in the early 2000s and it pretty much killed the franchise. It literally killed the Jamie Lee Curtis character off, so it's interesting that they're bringing her back, because I'm assuming if this is a sequel and they're bringing the character back, they're going to have to ignore the events of Halloween Resurrection. I don't know about you, but I can live with that. Now, to recap, up to Halloween H2O, the first 6 films are all canon with each other. Halloween H2O then basically ignored the events of 4, 5 and 6, and it was more kind of a direct sequel to Halloween 1 and 2. Then they did a sequel to Halloween H2O, like I say, Halloween Resurrection, which was god-awful. After that point, they started doing remakes with Rob Zombie directing Halloween and Halloween 2. They came out about 10 years ago. We'll kind of ignore them from this because that's a reboot. Doesn't even allege to be part of the same canon. So now what we've got is another reboot, another soft reboot of the franchise, bringing Jamie Lee Curtis back, who they've already killed off. Like I say, if they're ignoring the events of Halloween Resurrection and saying, well, this is more of a sequel just to Halloween 1 and 2, they've already done that with H2O 20 years ago. They've already taken that approach. So I really find this whole approach just very strange, other than the fact that we know how Hollywood works. They just want to make money out of a franchise. I'm not quite sure how it's going to play out on screen, let's just put it that way, how they're going to justify this. But it is what it is anyway, and John Carpenter hasn't really done much in the last sort of 20 years really, and he's not directing this, so to be fair, I'm not really interested, but it's worth talking about because a lot of people are very confused about how this franchise works and how it's going to work. Like I say, if you ignore Halloween Resurrection, I suppose that it could work, but we'll see anyway. We'll see what happens. There's a few things that have been said about this. I'm not quite sure what's nailed down anyway, so we will see, and I'll be covering this at Brand X Reviews. If you want to follow us on Facebook, YouTube and Instagram, I'll keep you posted with how things develop, but for now I'll leave you there and say thank you very much for watching.